The clay bowl left Silas Whitfield's hand and shattered against the wall, close enough that a piece cut Cora's cheek. Flour dust rose in the morning light like smoke after a gunshot. The iron stove behind the counter still ticked with morning heat, and the smell of baking rye filled the room, now mixed with something sharper, fear. Every customer froze. Mrs. Pruitt's hand stopped halfway to her purse. The Holly's boy, still holding his father's coin, backed toward the door. Cora did not cry out. She did not run. She knelt down, slow and steady, and picked up a broken piece of clay from the floor. She turned it over once in her fingers, like it was nothing more than a stone from the road. Then she stood, walked to the counter, and finished wrapping the roll she had been wrapping before the bowl flew past her head, a roll meant for a boy too poor to pay, standing barefoot just outside the door. She handed it to him. "Go on now," she said softly. "Eat it while it's warm." The room stared. Somewhere behind her, a woman gave a short, nervous laugh, the kind that comes when no one knows what else to do. Old Mr. Kettering shook his head and muttered to his wife, low but not low enough, "That girl's not right. Any sane child would be crying." They did not know what Cora knew. They did not know that crying only made her father angrier, that tears were fuel he burned like coal in his temper. Stillness was safer. Stillness she had built, brick by brick, over 3 long years. Silas stepped around the counter, his boots loud on the wood floor, his face red beneath his gray beard. He grabbed Cora's wrist, hard enough to leave a mark that would not show until the customers left. "You gave away my bread," he said low, only for her ears. "Again." "Yes, Papa," Cora answered, calm as still water, though her heart hammered like a smith's iron. Outside, a wagon rattled past on the dirt road, its wheels throwing dust against the window glass. A dog barked somewhere far off. The ordinary sounds of Wild West went on, careless of what was happening inside the little bakery with the crooked sign. Silas let go of her wrist. He forced a smile for the customers, the same smile he always wore in daylight, thin as the flour on his hands. "Fresh bread, folks," he called out. "Half price today." The customers shuffled forward again, pretending, the way the whole town had learned to pretend. But Cora saw the way 3 women exchanged glances. She saw the way old Mr. Kettering did not meet her eyes. She did not know when the wall inside her would break. She only knew that today once more it had held. The wind cut through Cora's thin nightdress like a knife made of ice. She did not feel her bare feet anymore, only a strange numbness climbing up from her toes, past her ankles into her legs. Behind her, the bakery windows glowed orange from the fire her father had knocked into the curtains before she ran. Smoke curled into the black sky. She did not look back a second time. Snow fell thick and silent, covering the road, covering her footprints as fast as she made them. She stumbled once, caught herself on a fence post and kept walking. Her breath came in short white clouds. Somewhere behind her, she heard her father's voice roaring her name into the storm, but the wind swallowed most of it, and she did not stop. She reached the trading post with her lips turning blue and her whole body shaking so hard she could not speak at first. She beat her fist against the wooden door, weak and slow, more a scrape than a knock. The door opened. Thaddeus Cole stood there in his long underclothes, a lamp in his hand, his eyes going wide at the sight of her. "Lord above," he said, and pulled her inside before another word passed between them. He did not ask questions yet. He wrapped her in a wool blanket, then his own coat over that, and sat her close to the fire he quickly built up from dying coals. He rubbed her hands between his own, rough and warm, until some feeling returned to her fingers. Only when her shaking slowed did he kneel before her and look into her face. "What happened?" he asked, quiet, careful, like a man speaking to a spooked horse. "He set the curtains on fire," Cora whispered. "He said if he couldn't keep me, no one would have anything left of me either." Thaddeus said nothing for a long moment. His jaw tightened. Outside, the wind howled against the walls. "You cannot go back there," he said finally. "Not tonight, not ever." "I have nowhere else," Cora said. A woman alone is nothing out here. No name, no protection, no law that will stand between a father and his daughter. Thaddeus was quiet, watching the fire eat through a fresh log. Then he turned back to her, his voice low and steady. "Then take my name," he said. "Marry me, Cora, not for love, not yet, for safety, for a roof he cannot burn and cannot enter. I swear before God and these mountains I will never raise my hand against you." Cora stared at him, snow still melting in her dark hair, her whole body trembling, though not from cold anymore. "You would do this," she asked softly, "for a stranger?" "I would do this," he answered, "for a girl who deserves to live." Outside, the fire at the bakery cast a dim red glow against the falling snow, growing smaller with distance, and smaller still with hope. The axe came down hard and Cora jumped, dropping the basket of eggs she carried. Two cracked against the frozen ground, yellow spreading bright against the white snow. She froze, her shoulders pulled up toward her ears, waiting. Nothing happened. She turned slowly. Thaddeus stood 20 feet away, the axe still buried in a fresh split log, his face full of concern rather than anger. "You're not hurt," he said, not a question, more like he was reminding her. "I'm sorry," Cora said quickly, already kneeling to gather the broken shells. "I'll fetch more eggs, I'll be quicker next." "Cora," he set the axe down and walked over, crouching beside her in the snow. "It's 2 eggs, nobody's angry." She stopped moving. Her hands, red from cold, hovered over the mess in the snow. Slowly she looked up at him, searching his face the way a person searches for a lie they expect to find. There was none. This was the way it had gone for months now, small moments where her body braced for a storm that never came. She flinched at raised voices, even happy ones. She apologized for spilled water, for burnt bread, for saying too much or too little. Thaddeus never shouted back. He only waited, patient as the mountain itself, for the flinching to stop. That evening, snow fell soft outside the cabin windows while the fire cracked and popped. Thaddeus sat by the hearth carving a small wooden bird, his knife moving in slow, careful strokes. Cora watched him from across the room, a blanket around her shoulders, a cup of hot broth warming her hands. "Why do you carve those?" she asked. "The rabbit, the bear, now this bird." "No reason," he said, not looking up. "Just something for my hands to do while my mind rests." "You never ask for anything back," Cora said quietly. Thaddeus looked up then, his knife stilling. "Should I?" Cora did not answer right away. Outside, wind moved through the pines, a low, steady sound she had grown to love instead of fear. "My father always wanted something back," she said finally. "Even kindness had a price with him." "Then I'm glad to owe you nothing," Thaddeus said simply, and returned to his carving. Something loosened in Cora's chest, like a rope pulled tight for years finally given slack. She set down her cup and moved closer to the fire, closer to him, close enough that their shoulders nearly touched. "I laughed today," she said, almost surprised at her own words. "At the creek. The fish jumped and splashed me and I laughed before I even thought to stop myself." Thaddeus smiled, small and warm. "I heard you," he said. "Prettiest sound this cabin's ever held." Cora felt her face grow warm despite the cold night air. For the first time in longer than she could remember, the silence between them felt like peace instead of danger. The letter shook in Cora's hand. Her daughter, barely 2 years old, tugged at her skirt, wanting to be picked up, but Cora did not move. She stood frozen by the cabin window, the mountain wind rattling the glass, her eyes fixed on words written in a stranger's hand. Thaddeus came in from chopping wood, saw her face, and set down the logs at once. "What is it?" he asked. "My father," Cora said. "He's dying. The doctor wrote this, not him. He's too weak to hold a pen." She looked up, her eyes wet but her voice steady. "He's asking for me." Thaddeus crossed the room and took her hands, letter and all, folding them gently between his own. "You don't owe him anything," he said. "Not after everything, not even this." I know, Cora said, and then quietly, I'm going anyway. Thaddeus studied her face for a long moment. Then he nodded once and reached for his coat. They traveled 3 days down from the mountain, their daughter bundled tight against the cold, and arrived in Weld West to find the bakery dark, the sign hanging crooked on one hinge. Inside, the smell of bread was gone, replaced by sickness and old whiskey. Silas Whitfield lay thin as a broken fence post, his skin gray, his once loud voice reduced to a whisper. When his eyes found Cora standing in the doorway, they filled with something she had never once seen in him. Shame. You came, he rasped. I came, Cora said. She did not smile. She did not run to his side. She walked forward slowly, her daughter on her hip, and sat in the chair beside his bed. I said terrible things to you, Silas whispered. I told you no man would want you. Look at you now. A husband who stands like a mountain, a daughter with your same eyes. He paused, breath rattling. I was wrong about everything. Cora looked at him a long moment before answering. You were, she said simply. Silas's eyes filled with tears, sliding sideways into his gray hair. Can you forgive a dying man? I don't know yet, Cora answered honestly. But I came. That has to count for something, even if forgiveness doesn't come today. She stayed 3 days, feeding him broth, changing his linen, saying little. On the third night his breathing grew slow, then slower, then stopped altogether while snow fell soft outside the window, same as the night she had run from this house years before. Cora did not weep for the father he had been. She wept for the father he might have been, had cruelty not eaten him from the inside out like rot in old wood. Outside, Thaddeus waited with their daughter, snow gathering on his shoulders, patient as ever. When Cora stepped out into the cold, he opened his arms without a word, and she walked straight into them, home already, no matter which direction the road behind her led.